texture of Florida.
It looks good there.
Looks good there, yeah? Well, you would say that. What part of there? We're going to get into, partially into that, in the weather dynamics. So does anyone, I guess, does anyone know where that is? Huh?
Colorado Springs?
Colorado Springs? If you know my nationality, that might be a big clue.
Oh, Brazil?
Bolivia. So that is Ilimanis, the mountain that sits over my capital city of La Paz. So up at elevations, I've actually been up there. My uncle runs the mountaineering service. But up there at elevation, there's snow, there's glaciers. In temperature-wise, you're probably looking at maybe in the low teens or negative Celsius. And then in the lower valleys, it's subtropical, and they actually grow fruits like papaya. So there's a huge dynamic and a change between extreme hot and extreme cold, all within the span of an hour's distance of each other. So that is not an equilibrium. You have two extremes, but we're going to be talking about finding the spiritual equilibrium, the middle point between extremities, and how that can be practiced. But before we go ahead and do that, as always, we'll do a little invocation. Om Tasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Paramayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Udaparakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvana Raghunatam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Balaram Sarvana Laita Shri Shakamitam Sa Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanuste Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpadayasya Kripa Sindhuveva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, spiritual equilibrium, or you want to make it even slightly more easier term, spiritual balance. So, what is balance? Even not even in spiritual terms, just balance. Anyone give me an idea? What is life or something that looks like that you can think of? Or do you think balance?
Like yin and yang.
Mike?
Like yin and yang.
Yin and yang. Yeah. So both of those energies complementing each other. None overpower the other. They're in that constant cycle. Good. What else do you think of? Or just what comes to mind when you think of balance?
Both sides equal?
Both sides equal. What do you mean?
The right amount of salt.
The right amount of salt. That is very true. And no black salt. But that is true. Everything comes in. Everything we do has balance. Cooking, doing our daily tasks, our daily routine, parenting. May seem unbalanced in some cases, but it's for a good cause. But everything we have involved in our lives has to deal with some type of balance. And this includes spiritual life. So in order to sort of get an idea of where we can find spiritual balance, we are going to read a couple of verses. So if I could have a volunteer to read the Sanskrit. This is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 18 and 19. Any volunteers for the Sanskrit?
Sama satro cha mitre cha sitoshna sukha. Oh, I want you to read the first time. It's hard. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, verse 18 and 19.
And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Sama satro cha mitre cha tadha mana pa mana yo sitoshna sukha dukhe eshu sama sanga vivarjitaha tulya ninda stutir mauni santushto yena kenachit aniketaha stira matir bhaktiman me priyo nara.
Thank you. Do I have a volunteer for the translation?
One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me.
Such a very person is dear, very dear to me. So that's the secret. How to gain the attraction and the affection of Krishna is to be balanced in all of these qualities. You think you can do it? I'm seeing a lot of silent and not many shaking heads. It's okay to say no. It's being honest with yourself. But if you look at all of these, break them down. Some of them you can say, yeah, that's easy. I can be equal to all my friends. Enemies, no, maybe not. Honor and dishonor. Sometimes people, yes and no. They want to avoid the limelight, but they're also doing everything they can to stay on everybody's good side. So you can kind of see where some of them I'm okay with, but others maybe it's a little harder to accomplish, to find that unique balance. Now, if you're able to meet the middle ground between all of these, not even getting too attached to the positives that you see on the screen, you would think that maybe fame is a good thing, happiness is a good thing, or just in close of talking about being honorable, you would think you'd want to stay on that as opposed to just completely avoiding the other. But here it says one who is equiposed, in between them all. Because in context of all of these things that are listed off in the verse that Krishna is telling Arjuna, that's all material. Material friends, material enemies, material honor and dishonor, material heat and cold. Those are all things that exist in the material world. At no point are any of these spiritual. But meeting in the middle ground between all of these, that is where a spiritually balanced person lies. Now, how to become very dear to Krishna? By being spiritually balanced. This is what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. He actually breaks it down into multiple different points. And we're going to go ahead and read each of them off, and then we'll break each of those concepts down. So the first, Srila Prabhupada says, a devotee is always free from all bad association. Not just bad association, all bad association. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. A devotee is happy in all conditions, nor does he care for any residential facility. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport has broken it down. These are the 5 points in how we can attain spiritual balance. Seems pretty easy. Think we could do these? I'm still seeing the deadpan. It's okay. This is a process. Bhakti is a process, so it's okay that we're not all enthusiastically nodding saying, yes, I've already got this, I've already mastered this. So, I definitely have. Let's talk about each of these in succession. So first off, a devotee is always free from all bad association. How do you do that? Sadhu Sangha. Association with the Lord's devotees. Now, up above, I have a picture of Sripad Ayendra Prabhu in the 24-hour Kirtan department. If you came in at 4 today, or earlier, to notice, did anyone notice anything slightly different about how we were sitting down? Raising your hand, sharing. Nothing?
Yeah, very nicely with the kirtan and with the mass.
We did it, yeah, in a more half circle. Before we know, we did the rows. It's very nice, very neat, very orderly. You would all get great marks in school for how nice and proper. But there was a problem. There was no Sangha. There was Sangha between us and seeing the Lord, but remember, the Lord also derives pleasure from seeing devotees congregationally chanting together. And so I took a little inspiration from the 24-hour Kirtan Mandali. When they sit, they don't sit in rows facing the deities. They sit in semicircles together, looking at each other, so that the person who's leading can look at the other devotees. A, for communication, so it's more, there is a practicality to it, so you can keep in time and in rhythm. But also so you can share and listen as other devotees chant. You're more receptive. You can feed off of each other and grow and make that kirtan even more succulent for the Lord to hear. And that's what the Sripad Ayendra Prabhu did. He would sit down in the 24-hour kirtan, surrounding himself by other devotees who are dedicated to chanting the Lord's name 24 hours a day. So, Sadhu Sangha, associating with people who are of like-minded Krishna consciousness. That's what we want to do. As much as possible, and in this case, all the time. So choose your association wisely. Now, we'll go ahead and if I could have someone read out this verse for me, and then read the translation.
Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Pare, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhikam. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success.
Even a moment. Can anyone define to me what a moment could be considered? A second? A millisecond? A nanosecond? Just a moment. So, we can easily achieve this. Now, Sadhu Sangha can come in a variety of ways. It can be congregationally sitting down in a kirtan, unified together to please their lords. It can also be other ways. How do we associate with Srila Prabhupada, even though he's no longer physically on the earth? His books. So, diligently reading, not passing the page. It's like, yep, I'm going to get my 10 minutes reading done out of the day. I'm done. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Back to my normal life. Actually focusing, thinking, reflecting on what the words Srila Prabhupada is writing, and meditating on the meaning that he's trying to give to us. That is association. And that's association with the pure Vaishnava. But that is just a moment. Sincere in that moment. When you become Krishna conscious, it's actually just instantaneous. Becoming Krishna consciousness itself is immediate. It's just the building up, making sure that you're ready for that moment when it just flicks on. To have all these lights in here. Yes, all it takes is a flick of the switch, and then the light is on. But there's stuff that you have to do before that. You have to make sure all the electrical wiring is up to date and up to code. In order for that, you have to have a connection to the power line. To have a connection to the power line, you have to get the city to approve permitting and all these different things. There's many different steps to build up to the point where you can just flick on a switch and say, I have light. But when you're ready, it's instantaneous. So you have to make sure that every time you're associating with a sadhu, you're fully focused and everything is connected, so that hopefully the bhakti lata in your heart can start to truly blossom. Now, you don't have to do this alone. And we're going to segue a little bit into agriculture. So, there is this concept called the three sisters. Those are corn, beans, and squash. So in the Americas, the indigenous people, when they would plant their crops, they would plant these three together. And there's a reason for it, and it actually is extremely beneficial for the growth of the garden. The corn grows up, it provides height, structure, and shade. That height allows the beans to climb up and have a place to grow. And a little bit of shade for the squash down below. Not too much, but a good amount. The beans, as they're growing, they will fix nitrogen into the soil that helps the squash and the corn grow. Plants need the nitrogen, so it's extremely important. And then the squash, which grows low on the ground, will cover the ground. That will keep moisture trapped underneath the leaves so it doesn't escape. Corn is a very water-intensive plant. It requires lots of water. So the squash will help keep that moisture close to the ground so that the plant can grow. And if everyone, I'm assuming, has seen a squash or a pumpkin plant before, their leaves are big, so they also imply a lot of shade. That shading crowds out any other smaller plants that grow down underneath. So it's like a natural growing mulch. And so each of these three plants work together and provide a full three-course meal, and also help each other grow a lot healthier than they would in individual farming plots. So this concept of the three sisters, these three different things to grow, you can also apply it to when you're talking about sadhu sangha. You are going to associate with someone who is within the bona fide line of acharyas, going all the way back to Krishna. So like Srila Prabhupada, you're listening from the sadhu. But at the same time, you're also, like for example in this picture, you are with like-minded people who are also going to that sadhu to listen, to hear. And then when you go out afterwards, you're going to share what you've learned. A lot of times, if you've ever learned something really nice or funny or anything that you're just willing to share or that makes you feel good, you don't generally keep it to yourself. I mean, some people do, but at least you try to share things that you enjoy with those who are close to you. So you have that kind of three sisters concept. You have the tall stalk, the guru, who provides that shade, or in this case, the knowledge that goes down. You have the sadhus that are going around and just climbing up, trying to learn and listen. And then they also send out what they've learned to others, and that attracts them, and then the area grows. So you always want to make sure that when you're associating, you have all these three components. Someone to listen to, someone to listen with, and someone to share what you've learned. Because, when you think about even education, how do you know that, let's say the teacher, how does the teacher know that the student has learned it? For example, if I'm saying, recite this mantra that I just taught you. If I hear it back to me, like, okay, you've learned, you understand the concept. And then, okay, go teach this new student. Get them to your level so that we can move on to the next subject. So this sharing, this reciprocal nature, it's really important. And that is sadhu sangha. Now, the next point that Srila Prabhupada talks about in his purport, he does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. So, the only thing coming from his mouth is Krishna Katha. Now, for devotees, this is very special because devotees have a sweet tooth. Like, really they do. It's like an addiction. But there's a little more nuance to this sweet tooth addiction. It's not that we're just going out and we're eating the cheapest possible candy that we can get. No, we're going for something really sweet and relishable. So if I could have another volunteer, please. We'd like to read this verse from the Nectar of Instruction.
The holy name, character, pastime, and activities of Krishna are all considerately sweet and sugar candy. Although the tongue of
Like sugar candy.
Like sugar.
Oh yeah, like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, ignorance, cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by carefully chanting these sweet names every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue, and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root.
Is anyone suffering from the jaundice of avidya right now? Maybe, and sometimes it's subtle in ways that we may not perceive. But as it's stated here, just this gradual chanting of it will slowly purify it, just like how you cure jaundice with sugar candy. Eventually, that sugar will taste sweet. For a Vaishnav, that is why they constantly chant. Because once they've cured that jaundice, it's the sugar addiction. But this is transcendental sugar, so it's actually good for you. And it doesn't poke holes in your teeth. But there is a way to do it. So we don't want to, there's the phrase, wolfing things down. Like, you see like someone brings you a really nice plate of, let's say you're filling the blank your favorite food, they bring it to you. Sometimes there's the urge just like, wolf it down. You're like a dog. Don't even stop to savor the flavor. And then in less than 30 seconds, it's gone. That is not how we talk about topics of Krishna. We are excited and always enthused to speak on these matters. But rather than like a dog that just kind of blah, 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 and it's all over, no. This is a very posh sugar addiction that we have. You have to savor the flavor. Like you're at a nice restaurant. You sit down in a good position, nice and comfortable, and then you relish each and every word. You reflect on the meaning. So let's say if someone brings you a nice piece of cake that's like artistically designed, all these different little nuances, little fruits that are decorated here and there to accent the flavor of the base of the cake. You savor it, because you've noticed someone has taken the time to make this beautifully artistic cake that is in front of me. I'm going to look at each detail, take small bites, let the flavor dance on my tongue. Same way is how we are going to be doing when we talk about Krishna, especially when we're referring to what Srila Prabhupada has told us. So if we're reading from Krishna book, for example, Srila Prabhupada took the time diligently to write out meaning and the way and articulate how we should understand the pastimes of Krishna. Looking at how Srila Prabhupada wrote this word in this way, or even for any verse that he's translated, relish those meanings. When you're reading a description of the Lord, if you read a description of the Lord, it doesn't say, he's wearing yellow and gold. No, he's like the yellow silk and rose. There's small, fine details. Anyone want to practice that? Yes? No? All right, I need a volunteer.
Very yellow.
Wearing yellow. Don't worry, this will be easy. Mata, can you please describe their lordships in their dress to everybody? So take your time, look at the deities, look at what they're wearing, how they're dressed, and then take a minute or two, compose your thoughts, and then describe how they are to everybody. And you can get up, and feel free if anyone wants to help her out. Please do. This is also sadhu sangha as well. But yeah, take a good look, and then everybody also can mentally do it as well. Take a good look at Trishimitai Goda Nataraj. Look at what they're wearing on their torso, on their shoulders, on their neck. Look at all the things.
Yeah. We are working
Very close, man.
and
Like
Blue.
dress.
Would anyone else like to?
Flute jewelry.
You can.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Do we have another mic
But
floating
like,
around?
she was saying something actually.
What is Gola? Finish.
Also, I see from right now a combination of blue and golden color in the grace. On the top again, when I came, I saw that turban is somewhat little different, than what I have seen in recent days. And then there is a bird or parrot right on the top eating grapes. So I was again, wondering right now when I saw that, and I was thinking when last summer right now, how come, that bird is on the top of Krsna, Balram or Gauranitai and eating fruits. Again, but I thought there must be some reason, so that's something that I see. And yeah, it's basically a 3-color combination, right? Kind of golden, blue and white.
Alright,
And
what
like even
else?
the bird color is amazing, it's very bright.
Would anyone else like to?
I can answer.
Yeah, so let's
Just one back here.
keep on passing around.
I have to go back.
Small observation.
So I see, everything matches so nicely. Like for example, the bracelets are so beautiful, and the bracelets are blue. The dress is blue. The arm, it's like similar to like gold, silver. It's matching with the dress again. And yeah, there's a very sweet parrot on top, and grapes are there. Very nice. And I see like some flowers, big nice rose on the feet, and also the, what do you call paje? The anklets, this beautiful color of anklets, and the one, both are blue, the one on the toe, both are matching with the dress. It's beautiful. Very
So,
nice your dress. Hare Krishna.
attention to detail when you do Krishna Katha. If you were going to go out, let's say we were going to meet someone from ISKCON fill in the blank, and you wanted to tell them about ISKCON of Orlando, and they asked you, well, what are the deities like? Oh, they're Gornitai. That is the wolf down version of what we have. But no. Posh restaurant. Describing those finer details, what their anklets are like, the fact that there are multiple beetles and one of them is the wrong, like a mismatching color, but still it adds a little bit of accent. Looking at all these little smaller, finer details really makes the Lord even more attractive. That's how you want to, like, oh wow, they sounded beautiful. I haven't even seen a picture of them yet, but now I want to go either see them in person or at least look at them online at one of our many social media content. So subscribe. But that's what you want to do when you're talking about the Lord. Be descriptive. So if you think about even like when you apply for a job or you go to a medical exam, the doctor's not going to just say, look at someone and just say, man, 29 years old. No, they're going to ask, what's your weight? What's your hair color? What's your eye color? What's your skin color? What's your race? All of these details. And this is something for mundane, like a doctor visit. So why would be this, when we're talking about the Lord, be anything less than extremely detailed? So, attention to detail. You're sitting down at a posh restaurant. And it's also really important that when you're discussing Katha, you're also listening to someone who's talking about it. Specifically, you want to hear from the words of the pure Vaishnavas, because they are in the line of disciplic succession. They are bringing an unbroken line of knowledge that has been passed down from Krishna himself. And you can understand his qualities and his pastimes in vivid detail. Sure, you can go onto Wikipedia to look up X, Y, and Z. But it's going to come across as bland and probably inaccurate. You want to make sure you're going to a proper source so that you can really understand the source material. Now, the next point that Srila Prabhupada quotes into how to be spiritually balanced. Happy in all conditions. Keyword all. So I'm going to assume everyone knows where that is. It's on the flag. Krishna South. What's the furthest south you can go on planet Earth? Antarctica. So devotees have been to Antarctica. In fact, there's actually been Bhagavad Gita and a Srimad Bhagavatam distributed in Antarctica. All conditions. The cold, unfazed. I know that's a really, talking about cold in Florida, if people get cold and bring out the winter jackets when it's 60 degrees outside. Now imagine going and doing Sankirtan in Antarctica, where the average temperature is -50. See, happy in all conditions, heat or cold, unfazed. Now here in Florida, we also have extremes. We have heat, we definitely have heat. And we have torrential rains. And look, I saw some of your eyes when I said negative 50. You were already getting the little anxiety and the worry in your eyes. But it's actually fitting because we've recently been talking about this verse in our 10-minute calls. Could I have a volunteer to read this verse off for us? Anybody want to go? Yes, please.
त्रैगुण्य विषय वेद निस्त्रैगुण्य भावार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्व नित्य सत्वस्थ नियोगक्षेम आत्मवान. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature or Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the center.
Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety. Be established in the self. So, do you think those devotees were worried about their gain or their safety when they went to Antarctica? No. Not in the slightest. There's a yatra up in Anchorage, Alaska. Do you think they are worried about the cold? No. Are any of you worried about the rain when you come to the temple on Sunday?
No.
Yes? Honest answer. Well, all of these things, just like in the verse says, all of these dualities and anxieties, they just come around, they arise in the mind. The mind being influenced by different modes, by passion or ignorance or even goodness in some cases. And then all of these things and worries that the mind kind of throws out at us create these doubts. And saying like, no, I think I will just stay in our nice subtropical climate, not get out of my comfort zone, stay in my little box. I'm going to stay in my nice little 75-degree air-conditioned unit and be happy. But nothing ever gets accomplished if you always stay in your comfort zone. In fact, you just become stagnant. And you said you were worried about the rain, right? Krishna takes care of us in the rain. He literally lift to go over down hill and he's like, yeah, it just rained. It's just rain. Intro through torrents, torrential downpour, flooding, unfazed. So having that faith in Krishna to understand our position, the elements are nothing. Because also they are temporary. Obviously those devotees went to Antarctica, they didn't plant their, permanent homes in Antarctica. They knew this is a temporary trip. I'm going to deal with the negative temperatures for as long as I need to, but I'm still going to do so because I know it's going to make Srila Prabhupada happy. And if Srila Prabhupada's happy, then I'm happy. I don't have to worry. The next point. Nor does he care for any residential facility. Home is where the heart is. Does anybody know in this picture where that is?
Florida.
Huh?
Florida.
Florida? Not quite.
It says Tropicana.
Tropicana is the orange juice company.
Okay.
I see some.
I'll give you a clue. This place is critical to the history of ISKCON.
New York.
Where in New York?
Chinatown.
Where specifically? It starts with a B, but it's not one of the boroughs. The Bowery. This is the rundown part of New York. When Srila Prabhupada arrived to New York, did he arrive to a posh penthouse in Manhattan? No. He went to the Bowery. Lived in a small little, if you would call it a loft, and probably now in modern day New York, that's probably at least $2 to $3 grand a month for rent. But the Bowery was not a desirable place to live, in the slightest. In fact, you probably want to get out of there as soon as you moved in, especially during this time. If you think about this is pre all the Environmental Protection Agency laws that are established by the federal government. So New York was not a clean place. Still kind of isn't now, but It was not a very pleasant place to live, but that did not faze Srila Prabhupada in the slightest. Because home is literally where his heart was. He was there on a mission to serve his Guru Maharaj and Mahaprabhu's movement. So he made his home New York, and gradually he upgraded to naturalist gifts on 26th Avenue, and slowly started opening centers, moving to San Francisco, and then globally, and to the point where he was able, with the help of George Harrison, to acquire the Bhaktivedanta Manor in England. A lush, beautiful property. But the manor and the small temple over on 26th Avenue are equal, because both of them serve the same purpose: propagate the holy name. Would anyone like to read this verse off for me?
I can try.
Yeah.
Labha parvriti arambha karmanam asamaha sparaha rajasya etani jayati viviridha bharata sambha. Sorry for any mistake. Sorry? Bharata Shava. Okay. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activities, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop.
So, there's a reason why I picked this verse in specific context to why Srila Prabhupada talking about a devotee not caring about his residence. Because in the purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada says the following: if he wants to construct a residential house, he tries his best to have a palatial house, as if he would be able to reside in that house eternally, and he develops a great hankering for sense gratification. So a devotee is never attached to his place of residence, because once he becomes attached, that's where the mode of passion kicks in. You think about, like, well, I've got the American dream white picket fence house, 2 garage. Now I need to put the 2 cars in that garage. I have to make sure that I constantly recycle after those cars are 5 years old, get the newest model. I have to make sure I've got power to my house. I've got to make sure I have all my subscription services, because they seem to be multiplying every single year. I have to make sure I have every single one. TV in each room, fully stocked kitchen. Make sure the kids have everything they need. Oh, they need the newest game system. Cool, I've got to get that now. Passion is like a stone rolling down the hill. It's only going to get faster and faster and faster, and it's going to pick up more debris on the way and more baggage. So that's why a devotee is never attached to his house. Whether it be a big, small, Bowery, or the Bhaktivedanta Manor. It doesn't matter where the place is. I'm using that for Krishna. It's not my house. I don't need all of this. But if I have it, I'm going to use it in a way that's beneficial, not just for myself, but for other devotees, for the pleasure of their lordships. So that's why devotees never bothered. And ultimately, look, Srila Prabhupada is, if you look at everything he's accomplished, the richest man in the world. At no point was he, taking advantage of all that wealth, buying a private island and retiring. No, he kept on traveling up to the point where his body would no longer let him. And then he retired in Vrindavan for the remainder of his days. He didn't retire on some beautiful private island like Tahiti. So a devotee is not attached to his residence. The only residence that he is attached to is where his heart is. And there's always that phrase, I lost my heart in Vrindavan. And that's where Srila Prabhupada's hold is.
So if I understand that correctly, if you have a big house for that matter, then you should live in that house, but there should be no sense of ownership. Is that?
Yes, utilize it. If you have a big house, then that means you have facility to host a lot of people. What is one of the things that we should also do in order to, the first point I talked about, to achieve spiritual balance? Sadhu Sangha. If you have a big house, invite a lot of people. You have the facility to provide. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. So there are 2 personalities who are bathed in immense wealth. Anyone know who I'm talking about? Not quite. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. In today's standards, they would be richer than Jeff Bezos. The sheer wealth that they had was immense. But upon his choice of this Mahaprabhu, all that wealth couldn't mean a thing to him. If you have it, then use it in their service. Construct beautiful temples. If you have a large house, invite lots of people. Cook a feast for the Vaishnavas. Everything that we have isn't ours. It's just something that we can utilize in our service. And everybody has a different service mood, different ways that they can provide for a devotional community. If you're wealthy, then congratulations. You can sponsor a feast. You can host the devotees. Even if you're not wealthy, you can still provide your time and energy. Everyone can contribute in different ways, and that contribution is still equal. Because you're not driven by the mode of passion. You're not driven by the American dream to keep on climbing up the social ladder. You're on the transcendental dream. You're just trying to use whatever you have in the Lord's service. What I have is what I have. I'm not going to break my back for something that I'm just going to end up losing in 50 to 70 years. But if I have it, I'm going to use it. And then the final part. He is called fixed because he is fixed in determination and knowledge. So, that is one of the first pictures of Srila Prabhupada in the Western world. So, does everyone know where that is? Boston Harbor. So that's first shots of Srila Prabhupada in America. A lot of people say he came to New York. Like, no, he didn't. He actually went to Boston first. There's a statue commemorating his arrival in America, in Boston. When Srila Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta to carry out the mission of Mahaprabhu and his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, do you think he was fixed in his devotion? Yea or nay? Yeah. How many times did he actually personally meet with his Guru Maharaj to enact that order? Twice. He embarked on a life-changing mission after meeting someone twice. That requires an immense amount of faith and devotion to enact that order. But if that order is coming from a pure devotee of the Lord, you know that that message and that mission is unadulterated, coming directly from Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada had that firm faith to believe that, yes, I'm going to go into a strange land. I've had God brothers try before to go into the Western world and had very little success in preaching Krishna consciousness. But my Guru Maharaj told me to do this. I believe in the words of my Guru Maharaj. So I'm going to act on it. I could have another volunteer read this verse off from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone else got something? Yeah, not too.
एवं प्रसन्न मनसो भगवत भक्ति योगतः भगवत तत्व विज्ञानम मुक्त संगस्य जायते. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with the devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association.
Sums up Srila Prabhupada's mood. He was enlivened by devotional service to leave Radha Damodar, to go across the world on a cargo ship, go into a strange place, and then sit down and start chanting. But he knew that eventually it would work. As at the start, obviously he struggled. Srila Prabhupada did struggle to gather, but he remained fixed in that devotion, sitting down and gradually chanting. And slowly but surely people came. Some came and went, but a couple stayed. And gradually those few that stayed, like Mukunda Maharaj, attracted others and others. And it grew organically and naturally. Srila Prabhupada didn't force. You know, there's the phrase like Bible bashing. Srila Prabhupada didn't go to Tompkins Square Park and Gita bash people. He just sat down and did the Yuga Dharma. He didn't even ask people to chant, he just sat and chanted. And naturally, because of the pure devotion that was coming from his lips, people were organically attracted. Jai Shri Shri Jai Gaudana. And lo and behold, here we are 50 plus years later. 108 plus centers all around the world. Pretty much every single ethnicity is represented in ISKCON. All because Srila Prabhupada believed in the message of his Guru Maharaj. That is fixed devotion. And that's not an example that we can replicate, but it is an example that we can follow in the footsteps of. And that's how you achieve balance. So to do a quick recap, how do we find balance in our spiritual life according to Srila Prabhupada? The devotee is always free from all bad association. He does not speak about anything but the topics about Krishna. The devotee is happy in all conditions, nor does he care for any residential facility. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. Now, it's okay that you are not maybe at all of these, or even one of them, completely. But if you're endeavoring to try to reach that equilibrium, eventually you're going to level out. Just think about like if you lift like one of those little scales, like a ball or a pendulum. It'll swing, it'll swing, it'll swing, it'll swing, it'll swing. Eventually though, it's going to level out and actually meet that central point of equilibrium. It may take some time, but if you're determined and fixed, eventually, and have that faith, it will settle out. And you will achieve that spiritual balance. And it's okay if it takes a long time. It's great if it takes a short time, but there is no rush. There is no deadline date. Because even if we pass in this lifetime and don't achieve that spiritual balance, we get another try. We get to try again and again and again until eventually we can come to that spiritual balance and understand our relationship with Krishna. But fortunately for us, Srila Prabhupada has given us the formula, and if we ever need refreshers on the formula, we just refer to his books, and then if all else, just chant and be happy. So that's all I have, and the rest of the time we're going to do a little bit of a discussion. Talk about ways that we can think of how we can become spiritually balanced based on these 6 points. So before we go into that discussion, does anyone have any questions, comments about?
I have a question.
Yes.
So the point
Yeah.
one question. So the point number 2 is like a struggle for me. He does not speak of anything but they talk about Krishna, right? So how can we achieve this? Because if we are in like a group setting, I mean, and say we cannot speak more than 5-10 minutes, and we want to, do we just kind of say, okay, just let us always carry Bhagavad Gita with us and read the pages? How will we, because why I ask this question is because that way then we don't talk about other things.
Mm-hmm.
So how we can make this strong so we're not doing mundane talks?
Yeah. Well, let's actually go right back up to the main verse itself. Always silent, satisfied with anything. So, in some cases, there's that phrase, silence is golden. If you're in a setting where people are talking about something that you're not interested in, you don't have to comment. And if they think that you're odd or wrong for not commenting, then gradually try to move away from that association. Because obviously what we want to go to is ultimately sadhu sangha, associating with people who only talk about Krishna. So in some cases, being silent, not having to say. And then also keep in mind, you have a conversation with yourself all the time. Your mind is constantly talking to you about stuff, whether stuff you want to hear or you don't want to hear. So even mentally, maybe not, let's say, physically, verbally talking about Krishna all the time, but if your mind is throwing something at you, like some random jingle that you saw in a commercial that's stuck in your head, okay, well now I'm going to try to snap my mind out of it. I was like, no, think about this melody that I heard on Prayers to the Dust of Rush that Andrew was singing. Have a conversation with yourself. Or speak to Paramatma in your heart. You're not alone. So talk with Krishna. Chant to him. Sing to him. Even if it's only meant in your mind and silent. Devotees are always silent, at least externally, unless it's about Krishna, but internally they're constantly thinking about Krishna. Reminding their mind, or beating it with a broom in the terms of instructions of the Guru. And that's also another key point as well. Think about instructions from the Guru, stuff that you've been told, reflect on that. Am I following that meaning? Have I followed that instruction today? Have I done this today to please my Guru and Srila Prabhupada? So there are many different ways about it, but usually the easiest way to fix that is just sadhu sangha. Because automatically associating with someone who only talks about Krishna, perfect. And then also understand that it's gradual. There's this phrase, cold turkey, where they're trying to stop something and you just stop it outright. And that almost never works because it's not natural to stop something that your body is accustomed to. Think about for example, if you're, I'll talk about since I ran cross country and track and play soccer, or any athletes, they warm up. They don't just go, boom, I'm going to go into a competitive match with no warming up or no even training beforehand. They're going to prepare their body so that they can actually do the activity. Same thing with speech. You don't have to expect yourself, if let's say you want to get to the stage where I am not going to speak about anything of Krishna. I'm going to only speak about Krishna. But everything up to that point, you've constantly spoke about other things, and now you're suddenly going to only talk about Krishna. It can be hard. So give yourself incremental steps. If I'm going to have to talk about other topics about Krishna, let's slowly try to limit those. And gradually, eventually you'll be able to phase out of that into only devotional topics. So it's a process, and you have to understand what your situation is and cater to what your needs are.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, just on that same very nice topic, because I'm very honest, which you have said, and most of us go through this, that how can we just talk only about Krishna? So, and we give a good example of gradually developing. So, in the house, you tell your family, hey, clean the house. So, is it Krishna conscious or no?
Yes.
How? Which is the answer is yes, right. But how?
The house is clean.
This is Krishna's house. You have it as a picture or a deity of Krishna in the house. So you don't have to say, clean Krishna's house. Clean the house is good. So you clean Krishna's house. Like I told Krishna, cut the grass. So cut the grass sounds like a very simple job, or nothing big, nothing devotional there. But cutting the grass of a temple, it's understandable, right? So we are doing that. And I heard of one devotee, says, always remain silent. And silence means, silence is? Say? And who's golden? Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So speak about Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So devotees are smart too, very intelligent too. So we don't remain silent to say, no. Silence is golden. Golden is about Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Gauranga Katha is going on, Chaitanya happening. So we read those things. So, and plus coming on the calls, reading these things, eventually it is gonna shake you up as well from those readings. So see what Prabhupada teaches, tell us, right? Those things become close to our hearts slowly, just like our kids are. And that will eventually come to close. And he said, good, gradually it will happen. But like you text with Mataji, oh, I did this cleaning, or this is to be bought, that's Krishna consciousness. Let's keep doing those things more. And Krishna will arrange that you will have, or not only you, all of us will have friends around us, where we only have one focus in mind, how to please the Lord. That's what Prabhupada wants us to do. That's all he wants us to do, right? Free from nothing and topics, yeah. So everything culminates together because we are only worried about, or we're concerned about, in a good way, how to please Krishna. So these topics will help us. Right.
Any other questions? Yes, Mike.
Similar to the topic about Krishna Katha, you were talking about savoring the flavor of the Katha. Now you gave the example of Krishna book. Now Krishna book, it's a little easier to savor because there's beautiful descriptions, like there's a chapter, the description of autumn, beautiful descriptions. It's a little harder to savor more, I guess, dense. Dense is not the right word, but kind of like more scriptural kind of things. How do you savor that sort of thing when it's a little more like not, you can visualize descriptions, but you can't visualize that sort of thing?
This is where linguistics come into play. So, are the scriptures written in bland Old English? No. They are written in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a very melodious language. So when you recite verses, if you're reading from Shastra, you're not reciting it like you are in a fire yag, just nice pitch monotone to throw in a fire. No, you're giving it cadence. You're singing it, essentially. Bhagavad Gita literally means song of God. So when you're reading more complex literature, maybe, in some cases, maybe if, let's say, there's a verse that maybe it's not at my level that I can fully realize the understanding of the meaning, but I can still appreciate how it's written, how the verse is sung. Because even something as simple as that, think of that as like a decoration on their lordships. Obviously, the lordship is the actual deity, but they're wearing anklets, bangles, garlands, earrings, their turban. Think of it the same way when you're reading a verse. The way you can move up and down. That's a way you can savor it as well. Let the Sanskrit dance off your tongue. And then read the translation, reflect on the meaning. It's like, and then you can even read the verse back now that you know the translation and have that understanding. Because you could try to sing the English translation. It's not going to be as nice, but if you sing it in the original context, that's a one way to still appreciate, even if it's difficult. And then obviously the way to understand the more spiritually in-depth topics from Shastra, that same way as before is gradual. Constantly reading Shastra so that way you can slowly connect. It's like, okay, I can see this in relation to something else I read in this Purana or in this chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that's where reading comes into play of many different texts. It's good to also dive deep into one text, like going through the Srimad Bhagavatam bit by bit reading, but it's also good to refer to other texts as well, so you can kind of piece together that gigantic web of bhakti and see how they're all connected and all talking about the same message. But especially for someone who's beginning, and then maybe they're still trying to grasp some of the more essential concepts, focus on the Sanskrit. And that's also another way to learn as well. Just learning, if I see a verse that is in this meter or this length, cool, I know to recite it in this cadence versus that cadence. And that also helps you then in the future, when you're called upon to recite verses, you can start to show off your Sanskrit ability. So that's one way. Yes?
I just wanted to add on to just make a comment about it. And it's really interesting because when we're reading about shlokas, which don't really have so much of a storytelling ability to them, we can connect the shloka with stories we already know and make it go full circle. So that's something I thought about.
Exactly. If you even think about when you're teaching children, there's the moral of the story. There's always the story's cool, it's fun, but then there's always a deeper message behind that, so it's an easy way to grasp concepts. We have all the beautiful, sweet pastimes that you can read in Krishna books, especially when we're little. Yeah, I want to see Balaram punching people in the collarbone. That's great. But then when you start to read more, you can understand the more in-depth meaning behind all of these things. You can start to really connect the dots. But the smaller, more soothing pastimes are easy stepping stones that we can delve into the deep end of the Shastra and really relish the meaning behind everything that we're reading. Yes?
Question on the third point. So a devotee is happy in all conditions, right? So this for me is because the thing is, Arjuna was an enlightened soul, right? Means he has received the Bhagavad Gita from the God himself. But when he saw his son Abhimanyu was killed, he got angry and he said, Jayadratha, I would kill him, otherwise I'll kill myself. And God was with him. But still he was so attached to his son that he made that pledge, and God somehow, arranged and got it through. Being happy in all conditions when it was not possible for Arjuna, because when I started reading Bhagavad Gita, I started getting more interested in, some of these verses. So, which kind of tells me that you should be happy, but I get angry at times, right? And then I recollect that I'm being a hypocrite. If I'm reading Bhagavad Gita, how can I be angry? Like, that other soul is also, Krishna is personified, or living through that soul. How do we manage that in today's life? To be happy in all conditions, given our propensities, our past impressions, the sanskar vritti chakra, right? It happens. Somebody cuts my line when I'm driving, right? Anger happens, right? It happened now also, It just, how do you balance it out and say, forgive that, maybe it's Lord, how do you do that?
So, when you're looking about balance, and I'll go actually back to that idea of the pendulum. People also have their own natures. So, for example, road rage is a thing, especially in Florida. I can really relate to that. Since I was not originally raised here, people do not know how to drive in this state. I'm going to say that as a statement. I have driven across all of Canada, all of Mexico, and all of the United States and other parts of the world. People do not know how to drive here. It can be very aggravating sometimes. And if you have, let's say, your tendency is more like Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya in that nature, anger comes more quickly to you just because that is the nature of the body that you're inhabiting. But you don't, when you swing a pendulum and it swings to one side, it doesn't stay there. It swings back. And then it balances out. So sometimes, like for Arjuna's case, you're on the battlefield. If you're playing dull-faced and not in the mindset, like, yes, it's not going to be effective. You have to embrace anger, because when you're fighting or when you're playing a sport, competitive nature, you feed off that passionate energy. That helps you be efficient on the battlefield, efficient on the soccer field. That's how you are successful in that task. So, Arjuna seeing the death of his son, even reading how Abhimanyu breaks into the Chakravega formation and is holding off everybody on his own. And then seeing this and yet vowing revenge. Remember, Arjuna is in a battle and he has to win. He has now been given another extremely good motivation why to win. And he's going to utilize that anger in his benefit and service to Krishna, because ultimately Krishna's goal is to eradicate all these demoniac kings. And it's him and Arjuna that are not a Narayan. Devotee and the Lord, they are actors on a stage and acting out this pastime. So on the surface, yes, it is Arjuna in the body of a Kshatriya, angry, and now also seeing the death of his son. That will naturally draw an effect, but it doesn't consume it. You continue on in the Mahabharata and then continue to read and realize, yes, they mourn the loss of their son. But Arjuna was still able to understand his relationship with Krishna and that true understanding. And then obviously Parikshit, his grandson, would be enthroned. And the grandson is as good as the son. So anger is only temporary. All of these things are temporary. Like, yes, I may be driving on the road and I might get angry that this person did not use blinkers and just moved 2 lanes over and cut me off and almost cost me $2,000 in repair damage to my front bumper. But it didn't happen. And I'm going to keep on going. I'm still going to arrive to my job at the same time. Ultimately, that brief moment of anger, unfazed. So understanding that, yes, it's here, accept it. Don't, if someone cuts you off, it's like, no, happy thoughts. It's okay, let it happen and let it go. If you artificially try to stop these emotions, that whole concept of cold turkey, setting these firm barriers, it's not going to work. Emotions and all these different things we run with are like liquid. If you move with a bowl when you're walking, that water's going to swish and sway, and it may spill out a little bit. That's inevitable. But once you stop and place the bowl down, eventually that water will settle, and it's as if nothing even happened. So it's just coming to terms that, yeah, emotions are going to happen, but I'm not going to let them completely override my life and become my whole reason to exist. And once again, that's gradual, and that does take time sometimes to come to grips with.
So I was contemplating on all these points, Prabhuji, and following up what Prabhuji just said, especially the middle one, he pointed out, a devotee is happy in all conditions. And thinking about it and contemplating on it and thinking about how it has been on my journey, I was thinking that the entire life you're put into conditions, you experience conditions wherein you think that you have control on it, you're able to balance yourself, but then life knows how to put a new good test to you. It will throw a nice, challenging, better test. Now that you're there, grow a little bit more. As you said, use that energy in service of the Lord. So that was a nice way to say. And I was thinking that how to manage to stay happy or balanced in all conditions. How to stay happy in all conditions, that is so challenging. As I said, new challenge comes up, right? So my reflection was that just keep going, as you said, and surrender is what came to me. Surrender. And you gave another word for that, or synonym for that, service to Lord. Use the energy in the service of the Lord. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's actually a great point. Life throws you a challenge. When Krishna likes you, and he really likes you, or you're very dear to him, as the verse said, he will throw you material inconveniences just because, oh, you like me now. Do you actually like me, or is this a facade? Let's see what happens if I take away some of your job. Are you gonna fret? Are you gonna just let that overwhelm you, or are you just like, oh, okay, my situation has changed, but Krishna, you obviously are giving me this challenge. Krishna will give these. Krishna is a thief because he will take away many different things. Like we always talk about, when you go to different temples, people will just come, oh, please give me X, give me Y, give me Z. Thank you very much, give me my daily bread. But if you really want Krishna to favor you, it's like, okay, let's test your faith. Let's see how good you are. Think about also when a teacher gives their student a test. I'm not going to give you the super easy test just to see your knowledge. Let's say we've spent all semester and you're going to give you 10 true or false questions on the final exam. No. I'm going to give me a couple of essays on this topic. Here's some multiple choice on this topic. Give me some definitions for this. I want to see if you understand and you truly grasp this meaning. Same way, Krishna is going to throw us these material tests in life. Are you to the stage where you can overcome this and say, I'm unfazed. I'm not happy about this material thing. I'm not stressed about it. It's just what Krishna's thrown my way. How can I continue to serve and maintaining that equilibrium? And it is not always easy. So even especially when you think about, it's easier to turn to God or turn to Krishna when you're in positions of difficulty, when you're at your lowest. But it's also sometimes hard. It's even harder when you're in a position of goodness. I have all this wealth. I have everything provided for me. Yes, here's I'm going to light my little lamp for Jai, Pranams, and I'm going to continue with my material thing. Wealth often is a lot, and good standing is often harder to turn to the Lord than it is in a much more unfavorable condition. Or even think about it in places that are warmer. Does anyone know what's one of the fastest growing yatras in ISKCON? Like what region of the earth? What country? Very cold. Russia. Why? Is Russia a nice tropical paradise like Florida? No. It's cold. It's hard to live in it sometimes. Obviously, people have found a way to do so, and the Russian people are very tough. But when you go and tell them, Shasha, yes, the material world is full of suffering and all these things, Russians can look outside and look at the climate they live in and like, yeah, you're right. Krishna consciousness is great. Try doing this in Orlando. It's, the coldest it gets is maybe you'll get a week of 40-degree weather. The rest of the time it's 70s and the 90s in the summer. Yeah, it rains a bit, but you're never going to be cold. Pretty much everything grows in the ground here. You can grow any kind of fruits that you want. It's kind of nice. So it's a little harder. So you have to actually test yourself. See, like, how firm is my faith? And I know I'm in a position of comfort, but I still know that that position of comfort is only because Krishna is letting me have that for now. And I shouldn't get too attached to it.
Yeah, we just had an example of devotees happy or not in all conditions. We had a bug here by Sunil Prabhu, and Sunil was trying to figure out what to do now. And I told Radhika Rupa to look at that. So Radhika Rupa she can take care of those things. So the thing is that sometimes things may not be in our control, but we need to know who can help me in the situation. What if the bug was deadly, not deadly, but say scary. So when you don't want to deal with it too difficult, so we should know who else could help me in there. So now Rasul Prabhu, bugs times, Radhika Rupa is there to help you. So all of us should need to know somewhat about our own people, at least in this community, who can help me. Okay. Another thing that we also learn is the 4-letter word. Things like some car passed in front of you, you really raise your eyebrows, and the 4-letter is called WAIT. Wait. Take a deep breath. Don't react right away, because we cannot control others' actions, but we can control our reaction. And that reaction only causes us happiness or trouble. Right? So the line, if you can read, does a devotee want to be happy in all conditions? Everyone will say yes. No one will say no. But does happiness always comes to all the devotees in all conditions? Not always. Right? But the statement is this way. The devotee is happy in all conditions. That means I want to be a devotee and I should be happy in all conditions. I may not be able to do it on my own. I have my friends, my community members who can help me or guide me around. Sometimes it can be a bhakti situation like this, sometimes it can be small things, right? Different scenarios can be there. So balancing, as at the beginning he asked, what does balance mean? And I said equal on both sides. But this balancing doesn't really mean equal on both sides. It can be different angles of different levels of things you can say, where we need to find that perfect balance. And Hanuman, what does Hanuman use? Yeah, what did he use to burn the Lanka? His what? No. Tail, of course, tail, but emotional. Anger. Yes, Prabhupada said. Actually, Prabhupada said in Gita that sometimes to establish law, you have to do violence. He said that, to do violence. Sometimes people don't understand that is required. Like Dubai, if you go there, you can leave your golden purse today, come back in the next day, it's right there. Because the law is like this. Anyone steals, they chop their hands. Just right away. So that much of scare is there. No one will touch it even. Sometimes you have to give this kind of lessons to go to the point. But we know, okay, I've learned this now, I don't want to do this again. That's the whole point here. So anger, use it in service of Krishna is good. Right? And always take guidance from superior that I'm about to get angry. Can I do this? You can just check somebody, right? Then they'll tell you, no, yes, do it, go ahead, right? So he take Jai Shri Ram, and he did it. He didn't burn Lanka actually. He was trying to put the fire off his tail. So he was going everywhere to put the fire off, but every place got burned.
But it's also know your limits too. So don't expect to, if you're expected to go to, let's say, the other side of Orlando, I need you to do it as quickly as possible. but you're driving an old 1994 Honda Civic that's got a bad motor. Are you going to put pedal to the metal and get there as fast as possible because I've asked you to do this? No, you're not. If you're smart, you're going to go as fast as possible as it is safe and practical to do so. You know the capabilities of the vehicle you are in. Same way, the body you're in right now. Are you going to expect to be perfectly balanced? No, right away? No. I need to make some upgrades. I need to change the engine, make sure I've got good rotors, put a muffler on it. All these different things. You're going to basically tweak your body, take it to that big old metaphorical spiritual maintenance shop. Make the changes that you need gradually over time. Install these different parts, which you can achieve right from here by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, placing all these little things to gradually come to the point where, okay, now I can go as fast as possible to the other side of town. I have all the tools that I need, but I've taken the steps to get to that point, to achieve that balance. And as you get, just actually get a really good point to prove. Balancing isn't equal on both sides all the time. If you ever think of that balancing act, if you ever seen an acrobat, let's say they have a plate or on a stick and they have other sticks, they're moving up and down and constantly keeping that balance, and it will shift. But is anything falling apart? No. Same way when you find balance in your spiritual life. Things will move around. The material world is not static. It's literally a world of duality. Expect those changes. That's the nature of the material world. Just don't be fazed by it. And with that, I think that brings us to a close. So we'll go ahead and everyone please pick up the mats. We'll move them over to the corner and get ready to see their lordships. Hare Krishna.